Hi, everybody, and welcome to oh my gosh, the last episode of season one. I'm just gonna adjust my microphone, sorry, for potentially the worst ASMR you've ever heard in your life. All right. So, I have to say, today, like right before I was recording this, I was like looking at the card that we're going to be discussing today, the last card that we have yet to discuss, which is the Hermit card. And as I was like sort of planning what I was going to say about the image of the card itself, I was like, I swear that I've done this episode before. And I looked through like the YouTube playlist and I didn't find it. And I like counted, I went through all the cards of the major arcana and I was like, yeah, even though I remember talking about the structure of the card visually, I'm like, I don't know if I recorded it. So maybe there was a time that I started to record and then decided to do a different card or something. But yeah, so very weird. Maybe me in an alternate universe already filmed the card. But on the off chance that I completely overlooked it, and did in fact already film this episode, sorry guys, you're getting a bonus slash reprise of the Hermit card. Wow, what a weird experience. My brain is literally having such a hard time like comprehending this. It's whatever. It's whatever. Maybe I just like pre-planned and then just never filmed. Ugh. Well, welcome to episode 23. I think it's very apt to end on a 23rd episode because I was born on the 23rd of April. And therefore it is my favorite number. But anyways, I want to explore the Hermit card. I felt it was really suited to a final episode, because it just feels like a good note to wrap up on, because I will afterwards be taking time to go into hermit mode a little bit and get some enrichment time in my enclosure. Um, and yeah, I would consider myself much more introverted than I am extroverted. Um, Sorry if you can hear the thunder outside. There is a storm warning, and it is very gray outdoors. So, just another reason to pull a hermit yourself today, and stay inside because it's a bit of a yikes out there. So, yeah, I relate to the Hermit card in terms of the upright meaning and the reverse meaning. Um, and I'm just an introvert, you know. I love me time, so I get very exhausted in social situations and stuff. Doesn't mean I don't like putting myself out there into those social situations and all that jazz, but it's just one of those things where it's like the my social battery goes down real fast. I'm like an iPhone that you have used way too much TikTok happening, and it just depletes the battery faster than you ever would have thought possible. So, If you're watching on YouTube, then you can see, I'll put it on the screen, my actually repeated phrase every single episode. But the image of the card will appear on screen. So, to quickly go over the different elements of the card, on the outskirts of this card, we have a city line, and then we have just inside of that sort of this water-like imagery, and it looks like calm waters. There's like a glint to it. It's quite beautiful, and there's like this little sliver of either dawn or dusk. It's like when the water turns pink because of the light in the sky. Um, and I wanted to include that little sliver as this idea of like the end of something. There's sort of a trajectory with this that leads to a lighthouse in the image of the card. So this pink line represents the sort of like a depletion or the coming to an end of something. And that's, of course, represented by the pink nature, which we normally see just before the sun sets. And um, it's directing in sort of like an arrow to the lighthouse. So this is like our social period has ended, and we're heading towards our enclosure. If it was sort of the if you had enough time in your enclosure, we'll say, then the directionality becomes sort of a representation of your social battery growing again. Um, so there's that funky little element. But of course, the lighthouse we have as like a core element of this piece. And I wanted to include the lighthouse because there's sort of this idea of isolation. It's usually like in the middle of water. It's separated from several other signs of life, I guess. And but it also provides like a beacon somewhere for you to return home to, um, and do so safely. So I thought this was like a really good representation of what elements the hermit card stands for. And then on top of that, in the traditional imagery of the hermit card, we do see the hermit himself holding a lantern. So I thought this was like a cool sort of link to that, which is why I included it. So, yeah, when we talk about the hermit, we think of sort of this person who keeps to themselves. And um, interestingly enough, I did learn recently, albeit from TikTok, but like there's a fair amount of historians and stuff on TikTok. So, depending on what your For You page looks like, you might have also seen this too. But um, there was a period of time where people were hired to be hermits in like affluent, uh, very rich people's gardens. Um, and I just find that funny, but also like kind of a dream. Um, like I love the idea of just like living in a garden. I'm obsessed with gardens. So doesn't sound like too shabby of a job, but you had to keep this role, I guess. And if you strayed from it, you could be fired. So, pretty sure the timeline for people working as hermits was like very short. Um, yeah, there was a lot of turnaround in those jobs, and I really don't think it lasted very long as a trend. Um, but yeah, so with the Hermit card upright, this is an invitation for um, like time with yourself. It's an invitation for some soul searching and self reflection, recharge time, all of these elements of like solitude in a really peaceful, regenerative fashion. So, upright, it's like your active choice for um, this time of rest to happen. In reverse, however, this is more like the universe smacking you hard and you falling on your ass. This is like with it being in reverse, it's way more um way more the root of burnout than it is like your personal choice to take some time for yourself. And um in this way, because if you've watched previous episodes or you're familiar with the other art from our major arcana series, there are some similarities I feel with the tower card in terms of just the visual symbolism, and it is similar in that way of like if you don't choose to take the rest will get you. It'll find a way to get you, and it's not going to be as pleasant. So in that way, we can see the correlation with the tower card, where it's like if you don't choose to sort of shake your foundations to see what sticks, then the universe is going to do that for you, and it's also going to knock you on your ass. So just yeah, consider consider what direction the card is facing, because it will give you a bit of a better idea on whether or not it's time to choose a break, or you're past that point and you're gonna hit burnout real soon. Yeah, I think the Hermit card is one of those cards where it's like it really shows you this kind of importance for valuing your own time and your own energy, because I feel like it's so common, and I'm also speaking from experience, to like commit yourself and a lot of your energy to either one thing really, really heavily, or a bunch of things where you're just spreading yourself too thin. And it might come from a place of like FOMO. You just like don't want to miss out on these opportunities. You've got a lot of friends. You want to like make sure you're spreading yourself evenly, but you might not be considering yourself as one of the people that you need to spend time with. Um, so with the Hermit card in reverse, and another sort of way that this burnout or like forced isolation hits, that's a big difference between upright and reversed. Upright, it's solitude. It is a peaceful thing that you choose to pursue. In reverse, it's isolation, where this is something that happens to you and causes you to withdraw. So yeah, really understanding that you are someone that you need to spend time with is important to try to mitigate the amount of burnout that you will experience in your own like life cycle. But yeah, I know that there's a fair amount. Sorry if this becomes a call out for anybody, but I know there's a fair amount of people who at different stages of their life, as a way to not necessarily cope with something, or like do there's like an avoidance of wanting to do some self-reflection on a specific thing, or just generally. um, Sometimes people choose to spread themselves thin on purpose, keep themselves busy and therefore distracted. And, like, I guess you could call that a coping mechanism. Would I call it a healthy one? Debatable. Debatable. Um, but again, sorry if that's a call out to anyone. But it's pretty common to like go through that kind of cycle, but eventually when you kind of hit a wall, whether that is through burnout or even getting sick because you just haven't done what you need to for taking care of yourself, like mental um, mental self-care, emotional self-care, even like spiritual hygiene, really taking care of the ways in which you connect to the different parts of yourself and do that self-reflection. And with this card upright, there's soul searching involved. There, especially, again, we're going back to the Tower card and how it kind of relates. Like, I think these two pair up really well because sometimes you need a lot of recovery time this when there's something in your life that's shaken loose, and it seems like chaotic or catastrophic, depending on your choice or the universe's choice to put that on your path. So the Hermit card is like a nice little assist or tool, but it does sometimes lend to shadow work or examining things that maybe make you a little bit uncomfortable. But it can also be something as simple as like, take your time. Um, I was speaking to a really good friend of mine recently, and we were discussing sort of the affirmations that we repeat to ourselves as much as we can, really. And one of the affirmations that I wrote for myself a couple of years ago was, I have time to accomplish my goals. And this, like, I repeated it out loud several times because at first, like, the thing with affirmations is sometimes, like, it's hard to say them out loud. And, like, it's even harder to believe them, especially if you can't sort of break through that barrier of saying them out loud. Um, Something about voicing those affirmations really is incredibly beneficial to the process of accepting them um, and honoring them through changing things in your life to make room for that. And yeah, that my thought of my affirmation of you have time to accomplish your goals relieved a lot of stress, undue stress that I was putting on myself, um, because I really had this go, go, go mentality. For so long, I thought that I had to be sort of the not necessarily the best, but like up there, um, just in terms of like my academics or my work ethic. I had 6 jobs when I was in my final year of high school, and like I was applying to scholarships and doing volunteer hours and just like going above and beyond. And then throughout university, I had like up to 3 jobs at a time. And then on top of that, like volunteer positions and um, extracurricular activities and stuff that I was doing as well. So I always had a ridiculous amount of things on my plate, and I remember people praising me for it because it was, like, insane how much I was able to handle, but I ended up being so exhausted and burnt out when my degree was done, and when I could just have one full-time job and exist. And I remember feeling like going into my first, well, not exactly my first like full-time career job, but just a job that was full-time and covered me entirely financially. And I felt bad because I wasn't going to the same lengths that I was going to with previous jobs and managing everything. I felt like I wasn't doing enough, and I was still getting praised. And so I was, like, confused because I was like, I feel like I'm in sleep mode." But it just kind of, like, goes to show that your expectation of yourself is probably way beyond what the actual expectation for you is. And it's important to, take the time to regenerate your own energy and finding a way to do that consistently where there isn't necessarily a
Be a
depletion
depletion
of
of
it.
it.
It's
It's
just
just
like a
like a
consistent
consistent
back
back
and
and
forth
forth
of
of
shared
shared
energy
energy
and
and
energy
energy
that
that
you
you
keep
keep
for
for
yourself.
yourself.
Like I
Like I
said
said
earlier
earlier
in
in
this
this
episode,
episode,
viewing
viewing
yourself
yourself
as
as
one
one
of the
of the
friends
friends
that
that
you
you
want to
want to
spread
spread
your
your
time
time
with
with
is
is
vital.
vital.
It's
It's
gonna
gonna
it's
it's
gonna
gonna
like
like
change your
change your
life.
life.
And
And
that's
that's
really
really
what
what
the
the
hermit
hermit
card,
card,
like the
like the
lesson
lesson
of the
of the
hermit
hermit
card
card
is.
is.
Um,
Um,
because
because
otherwise,
otherwise, you know,
if you
if you
don't
don't
learn to
learn to
value
value
your
your
own
own
time
time
to
to
recharge,
recharge,
and
and you know,
recognize
recognize
where
where
you're
you're
putting
putting
that
that
time and
time and
who
who
you're
you're
spending
spending
that
that
time
time
on,
on,
and
and
whether or
whether or
not
not
that's
that's
like
like
you're
you're
getting
getting
anything
anything
energetically
energetically
from
from
that
that
as
as
well
well
to
to
keep
keep
you
you
going.
going.
Um, that's
That's
important
important
because
because
otherwise
otherwise
you
you
are
are
gonna
gonna
be
be
forced
forced
to
to
repeat
repeat
this
this
lesson
lesson
over and
over and
over
over
through
through
burnout,
burnout,
through
through
sickness,
sickness,
um,
um,
through
through
just
just
general
general
fatigue,
fatigue,
through
through
this
this
really
really
uncomfortable
uncomfortable
the force
force
of
of
just
just
take a
take a
breather
breather
from the
from the
universe.
universe.
Um,
Um,
but
but
yeah,
yeah,
the
the
last
last
thing
thing
that
that
I
I
want
want
to
to
note
note
about
about
this
this
card
card
is
is
that
that
it
it
relates
relates
to,
to,
or
or
it's
it's
sort of
sort of
like
like
assigned
assigned
the
the
zodiac
zodiac
sign
sign
Virgo.
Virgo.
So
So
if
if
you're a
you're a
Virgo
Virgo
watching
watching
this or
this or
have
have
Virgo in
Virgo
your
in your
chart
chart,
and you're
and you're
like,
like,
wow,
wow,
I
I
needed to
needed to
hear
hear
this,
this.
it's your
It's your
card.
card.
That's for
That's for
you.
you.
If
If
you
you
don't
don't
have
have
Virgo in
Virgo
your
in your
chart
chart
and
and
it's
it's
still
still
related to
related to
you,
you,
hey,
hey,
like
like
that's
that's
why it's
why it's
part of
part
the
of the
major
major
arcana.
arcana.
But one
But
of
one
the
of the
key
key
factors
factors
of
of
Virgo,
Virgo,
and I
and I
forget if
forget
I
if I
talked
talked
about
about
this
this
before,
before,
but
but
one of
one
the
of the
key
key
factors of
factors of
Virgo
Virgo
is
is
health,
health,
which I
which I
feel
feel
like
like
isn't
isn't
talked
talked
about
about
as
as
much
much
as
as
like
like
perfectionism
perfectionism
and
and
organization
organization
and
and
like
like
attention to
attention to
detail and
detail and
all
all
that
that
stuff.
stuff.
But
But
yeah,
yeah,
it
it
does
does
relate to
relate to
health,
health,
and
and
the
the
hermit
hermit
is
is
sort
sort
of
of
that
that
um, hygiene
hygiene
in
in
all
all
levels of
levels of
yourself
yourself
in
in
order
order
to
to
keep
keep
yourself
yourself
in
in
a
a
good
good
place.
place.
So,
So
yeah,
yeah,
if it
if it
comes
comes
out
out
in
in
your
your
reading,
reading,
definitely
definitely
consider
consider
the
the
way
way
that
that
it's
it's
facing
facing
and
and
take
take
some
some
time for
time for
yourself.
yourself.
You
You
know,
know,
just
just
throw
throw
on
on
some
some
music,
music,
maybe
maybe
read a
read a
little,
little,
and
and
nap.
nap.
Dude,
Dude,
I love a good nap. So do not feel guilty for doing that, because rest is like, it is productive for your own health. So never worry about not being productive in those periods, because like health is something. Dude, tending to a body. Oh my gosh. Tending to a body takes so much work, so much energy. So rest is part of that. With the hermit card, take that as a prescription from the universe, and have a nap. Anyways, that's where I'm going to wrap up on the card. Thank you guys so much for tagging along through this series. I will be returning with season 2. Oh boy, thunder's getting loud. But I will be returning with the season 2. So, if you enjoyed this series so far, stay tuned. I will say we're switching it up a little for season 2. So, keeping it interesting. I'm excited. Hopefully you are too. But yeah, if you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, you can subscribe, and that way you will be notified when the next season begins. In the meantime, I have listed some pick a card tarot readings on Patreon. So if you're interested in that, I don't know what the conversion is, because I'm pretty sure Patreon is US. But it's around $10, I want to say, a month for all the readings. You'll get multiple readings throughout the month, and you get to practice your intuition, have readings done by me, and I try and mix it up. I have a lot of readings that I've kept sort of in a little bank that I will be uploading, so they are timeless. Whenever you find them is when they're meant for you. So yeah, definitely check that out. It's like the price of a Starbucks coffee or something, once a month. And you get little personalized readings, since I'm not going to be at markets for a little while, and didn't want you guys to miss out, so definitely check those out. And thanks again. I'm still processing that this is like the last episode of season 1. That's really crazy to me. But yeah, I really appreciate all the feedback, and I'll be back for season 2. So without further ado, thanks for watching. Bye.